River remained a country of myth to the deeply religious Jedediah Smith. A parable, in a sense, meant to illustrate God's munificence to any man willing to keep the Christian faith through the many trials the Almighty set before him. Smith had kept his faith. If anything, it had sustained him during his time with heathens and apostates, both red and white. It was said that he made the mountaintop his confessional, the forest glade his altar. The high country outfits he had piloted were sprawling amalgamations of licentiousness and vice, yet he himself touched alcohol sparingly, shied away from tobacco, and despite myriad opportunities, had never womaned up. With his ears constantly filled with the language of the profane and dissolute, a contemporary chronicler wrote, no evil communication proceeded out of his mouth. Up to this point, Smith's Lord had indeed placed many trials in his path, few, if any, more hazardous than at present. The buffalo tracks crisscrossing the water-scrape, headed in all directions, formed a crazy quilt. The freshest hoof marks, however, appeared to lead to and from the rock outcropping he had spotted, now close enough to make out without a spyglass. He was within a half-mile of the rounded bluffs when the riders showed themselves. Through the shimmering heat haze, Smith counted 15, maybe 20. Comanche or Kiowa, he could not be certain. It was said that a veteran plainsman could tell the difference by studying the ornate stitching adorning their buckskin leggings and moccasins. Smith's attention was far more focused on the sunlight glinting off the metallic blue barrels of their rifles and the steel-tipped points of their buffalo lances. In his time on the borderlands, Jed Smith had absorbed an irrefutable truth foreign to most Easterners, that there was no single amorphous mass of Indians inhabiting the North American West. Each of the scores, if not hundreds, of tribes and moieties scattered across the continent had its own customs, its own ritual beliefs, its own often violent views toward outsiders, particularly whites, and each expected to be dealt with on its own terms. In this case, however, any difference was moot. The Comanche and Kiowa had long ago formed a military alliance that had evolved into the most feared and powerful entity across the southern plains. Riding and fighting as one, they had cowed first the Spanish and then the Mexicans, and had even driven off the mighty Apache. Presently, with wagon traffic increasing on the thin ribbon of trail connecting St. Louis to Santa Fe that bisected their lands, they had begun to wage war on the trespassing Americans. Jed Smith had sharpened his battle instincts to a fine edge in lethal confrontations with peoples as disparate as the Arikara and Blackfeet, the Mojave and Arapaho. He recognized when it was time to flee, time to fight, time to negotiate. The band he now studied sat atop stout, well-watered ponies that would easily overtake his own hobbling horse. To run would be futile, and given their number, combat, even if he could find cover, appeared equally bootless, which left talk. Jed Smith drew his long-barreled Creamer rifle from its elk-skin scabbard, balanced it across the rise behind his saddle horn, and spurred his mount forward. It was his only play. Part 1. The Hunter. Bring me men to match my mountains. Bring me men to match my plains. Men with empires in their purpose and new era in their brains. Sam Walter Foss, The Coming American. Chapter 1. Enterprising Young Men. It must surely have seemed a sight to the tall young Northerner. A hunter by trade, he had passed through a variety of hamlets, villages, and even blossoming boom towns in his 23 years of meandering west. But nothing had prepared Jedediah Strong Smith for the bustling city of St. Louis, a virtual metropolis looming high over the western bank of the Mississippi River. It was a chilly April morning in 1822 when Smith, likely alighting from a packet that had ferried him from the green fields of northern Illinois, traversed the narrow riverside boulevard the locals referred to as Under the Hill. The street, slippery with mud and horseshit, was teeming with a cross-section of humanity. Shallow shaft Ozark lead miners in greasy overalls, cashing in company scrip for kegs of rum. Restive Indiana farmers bound for the loamy fields opening up along the Boone's Lick Road, abutting Osage Indian territory. Peddlers and storekeepers clad